I'm going to call to order the February 2nd, 2026 meeting of the Palo Alto City Council. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Of course. Councilmember Rectal?
Here.
Councilmember Lithcott-Haynes?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stone?
Here.
Mayor Vinker?
Here.
Councilmember Liu?
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Lowing?
Here.
Councilmember Burt?
Here.
For the record, all present.
Oh, and I guess that was a great illustration of why I was going to ask for a little grace tonight. I want to thank my colleagues for the fact that we have met 3 out of the last 4 weekend days, having our retreat the weekend before last, and having met each of the last 2 days on Saturday and Sunday. So I'm grateful to all of you for your time. And we are a little weary, so we need to be kind tonight. And so with that, we will turn to our first order of business, which is one of our favorite types of orders of business. A special order of the day, a proclamation honoring Christopher Fujimoto for 25 years of service to the city of Palo Alto. Director Eggleston.
And thank you, Mayor Vinker and City Council. I'll kick us off on this. Brad Eggleston, Director of Public Works. And yes, tonight we are again saying goodbye and good wishes to send off yet another of our longstanding Public Works employees, Chris Fujimoto. Chris was with us for a quarter century in the watershed protection group at the Regional Water Quality Control Plant. Really one of the outstanding members of that group in terms of building our award-winning stormwater pollution prevention programs there. So Chris is really foundational to a lot of what goes on. All of us, and especially that team out there, are really going to miss him, but wish him well in retirement. I'll point out that his wife, Paula, is sitting there with him, and then turn it back to you for the proclamation. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, and welcome, Paula, and thank you. I'm going to turn it over to the Vice Mayor, whom I've asked to read tonight's proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it's an honor. Whereas Chris Fujimoto joined the City of Palo Alto in July 2000 as a code enforcement officer with the City of Palo Alto Planning Department, and then joined Public Works Department Environmental Services, Watershed Protection in June 2005 as an industrial waste investigator. And whereas Chris inspected construction sites, green stormwater infrastructure, commercial and industrial businesses, municipal facilities, construction dewatering, and other locations to ensure the City of Palo Alto stormwater ordinance and regional stormwater permit requirements were followed to protect local creeks and the San Francisco Bay from stormwater runoff pollutants. And whereas Chris responded to illicit discharges to reduce the extent of harm to local creeks and watersheds, and coordinated with the City of Palo Alto Fire Department, Public Works, Public Services Division, and others for cleanup, enforcement, and resolution. And whereas Chris actively participated in Santa Clara Valley Water District's Creek Connections Action Group and led creek cleanups during his tenure with Watershed Protection to improve the health of the watershed and engage the public in environmental protection. And whereas Chris established trash booms on Matadero and Adobe Creeks in coordination with the Santa Clara Valley Water District and led trash booms clean out to prevent trash from flowing downstream to the Palo Alto Baylands and San Francisco Bay. And whereas Chris represented the City of Palo Alto at regional meetings and during daily public service with expertise and professionalism. And whereas Chris was certified by Rescape and trained in green stormwater infrastructure maintenance practices, bringing expertise to green stormwater infrastructure, design and maintenance, and best practices for landscaping maintenance. And whereas Chris completed 25 years of dedicated service to both the City of Palo Alto's code enforcement team and the Watershed Protection Stormwater Program. Now, therefore, Vicki Vinker, Mayor of the City of Palo Alto, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby recognize Chris Fujimoto for his years of dedicated service. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor. And do any of my colleagues want to make any comment? Councilmember Burt.
Well, just briefly, as I was really hearing your career path through so many really critical environmental initiatives that this department and this city has led on, I think we could have saved a lot of business cards and just given you one title of environmental warrior. And I don't know, I think it must be fulfilling to have had a career that lets you have such positive outcomes for our community and our environment. So thanks.
Any others? Well, I add my thanks, and I think that Councilmember Burt summed it up perfectly with environmental warrior. And we're just grateful, from the green stormwater to the creek cleanups to involving the public. Truly, on behalf of all of us who benefit from a cleaner watershed and cleaner creeks, thank you so much. And we would be honored if you would come up to the dais and have a picture with us. All right, so now we can move on to item 2, which is a closed session item, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. Colleagues, oh wait, any public comment on this item?
No request to speak and no hands are raised on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. All right, can I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Very good. May we kindly call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Stone,
Yes.
Councilmember Burt, Mayor Vinker,
Yes.
Councilmember Lithgott-Hames.
Yes.
Councilmember Liu,
Yes.
Councilmember Rectal.
Yes.
Councilmember Lowing.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. So this closed session is estimated to put us back here around 6:10. We might be before that, we might be after that, but that is our best guess. So until then, we are recessed into closed session. Thank you. Okay, we are back from closed session, and there is no reportable action. So we will move on to agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Do you have any public commenters?
We have no requests to speak for items not on the agenda in person,
And
per our policy. I just wanted to state that because I do see hands raised on Zooms, but per our council procedures and protocols, we only accept Zoom comments in person for those that do have their hands raised on Zoom.
I see. All right, so to clarify, for matters that are on the agenda that are agendized, we will take public comment in both forums, but just so the public is aware, for matters not on the agenda, we require presence in chambers, and we have none, correct? Okay, so now we are even more ahead of schedule. All right, so with that, we'll close public comment. I kind of wanted to wait for 3 more minutes since it's agendized later, but why don't we close it? We'll move on to council member questions, comments, and announcements. I don't see any lights, so I will start. Just wanted to report that last week I attended the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting in Washington, D.C., and there were many topics, of course, discussed, but there were 2 that got the most attention by far from the mayors in both plenaries and breakout sessions. The first was AI, and it was everything from uses for efficiency, concerns about privacy, but mostly it was grappling with data centers that power AI. And, the cities were grappling with the fact that they're attracted by revenue generation, but they're concerned about the things we know: water requirements, energy costs, energy supply, loss of the ability to use land for other purposes. But it was so clear that they are craving for a conversation, because these are complex issues, and all the little and big towns across the country are independently trying to sort this very complicated question out. So it was fascinating to see how much time and attention was devoted to that. The second will not surprise you. It was immigration enforcement and ICE in communities. And I will tell you that mayors from across this whole country are profoundly concerned about the impacts we're seeing in Minnesota and the possibility that it could happen in any of our communities. There were 3 different sessions that I attended where it was the primary topic. And to be clear, the conversation was not focused on federal immigration policy, but on the fear that has descended into communities. They talked about chaos. They talked about turmoil. And I don't have time tonight to share more than just a couple brief snippets, but there was a 10-minute speech from the mayor of Minneapolis who came in person to speak to all of us, and it brought the crowd to their feet. And just a couple quick snippets. He said, "For people who are watching the news, I'll tell you that it is that bad." He said, "As mayors, we operate in the reality business. Despite what you may hear, crime is down in virtually every category and neighborhood. Minneapolis is a safe city, but it is less safe when families do not feel comfortable going to school or buying food at the grocery store because they're worried about their family getting ripped apart." And, he went on, and for any of you who are interested, I have a tape, audio tape of what he said, but it was tough to listen to. And then we also heard from the mayor of Portland, and I'm not going to share his remarks except to say that, you could really hear the profound concern that he had for his police force. He said the exhausted officers were working 100-hour weeks, and it was just unsustainable. But I think the thing that stuck with me the most was the mayor of Edina, Minnesota, which is a little suburb of Minneapolis. So it's kind of like where Palo Alto is from San Jose or San Francisco. It's about the same size. And so I asked him yesterday, so he spoke in a breakout session, and it was amazing. And he sent me his remarks yesterday, and I'm just going to, again, just a quick snippet from him because I found it very moving. And he said, "The work of federal enforcement has entered our neighborhoods, our workplaces, our schools, our churches, and our medical facilities. The effects are not abstract, they are human, immediate, and consequential, and as presently carried out are reshaping our cities in ways none of us who were elected to lead our communities can ignore. We are told the actions are precise, they are not. We are told their effects are contained, they are not. Fear has not confined itself to a single householder status. Citizens withdraw alongside non-citizens." Anyway, it goes on, but the last, one of his latter comments I want to add in. He says, "Finally, there is a burden placed upon local government. Mayors and city council members are left to explain federal actions we do not control, to calm fears we did not create, and to mend relationships strained by forces beyond our municipal boundaries. We are asked, in effect, to hold the fabric of community together while others pull hard upon its threads." And it was moving, and most of the other mayors had their own stories and concerns, so it's something that is being felt on the front lines. The U.S. Conference of Mayors put out its own statement. You can find that online. And, you know, this is not a fight that we seek, and we have no present information that ICE is coming to Palo Alto. But if the fight is brought to us, I think we're now on notice that we need to be ready to some degree. We need to be aware of what we would do. And, you know, it's clear that we're not going to interfere with lawful operations. There's a supremacy clause in the Constitution, and we respect the law. But as our police chief has said, and the law in California dictates, we will not work with ICE. And my understanding of how the normal course goes is if they attempt to commandeer city property for their use, there are standards of practice that are typically followed. They let us know when they're coming to town. We can go say to them, if they decide to use our property, we do not want you to do that. They would then be expected to move. If they don't, we can then have a discussion here, I would suggest amongst us, as to whether we take legal action or what we would do. But that is something that we can address, and I would urge us to do so if the case comes up. Our police have a duty to intervene, just as they would if their own fellow officers or Menlo Park fellow officers were hurting and harming a bystander. So not interfering, but if there was ongoing harm, they are there to protect us. And I believe staff is preparing some direction for city employees because of all the various workplaces we maintain here in town and the various things we want people to be ready for how they would appropriately and lawfully respond. And then the fourth we touched on last year, which are options for legal action. And I would say that I just want to share with council that this afternoon, we actually received an invitation from the executive director of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So the federal government has sued Minneapolis, sued the state of Minnesota to compel them to work with ICE. And they are fighting back to say that that is not constitutional. And there's an amicus brief being filed by a consortium of cities and counties, similar to amicus briefs that have been filed in similar actions elsewhere. And we've been invited to join. I think it's something we should take a serious look at. We may have trouble meeting the deadline. It just came in, a couple hours before council, so I haven't had time to really look at it. In the resolution we passed last year, there were two options for bringing it before us. We could mention it tonight from the dais, any two or more of us. or we can send in an email, any two or more of us, and ask that it be scheduled for a closed session. So I will likely do the latter, but I wanted to let people know tonight, because I'm happy to share with them the email so they can take a look at the other cases and briefs that have been filed before in other actions. But friends, it was rough to hear this stuff firsthand, and I think that I'm glad I live in this city with all of you here on the dais and our staff who's aware of how to respond in these instances, and I think that together we'll be able to do our best within our power to protect our residents. Thank you. Vice Mayor Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I just want to second all of your comments and appreciate the work that you did at the mayor's conference. I just kind of wanted to follow up. I was so impressed and incredibly proud last Friday. My high school that I teach at, Carlmont High School, did a mass walkout covered in the news. I teach at a school that has I guess has the reputation of not being overly politically involved, and this was the first time, at least in my 5 years of teaching there, that I saw a majority of students really speaking out and making signs and showing up, not showing up to my class on Friday, although I was very proud to only have about 5 students in each class when it happened. So showing up by walking out, and there was one sign that one of my students made that I just wanted to share the message, and it was a beautiful sign. I can show it to any of you, but the message was, first they came for the immigrants, and I spoke up because I know the rest of the goddamn poem. And I thought that was so incredibly powerful, and it was beautifully written on there. There were a lot of other also beautiful messages, but more crude that I won't share. But I know Carlmont was not alone, and this is something that's been happening not only around the region, but across the country as well. Palo Alto High School, Gunn also had very successful walkouts. And just following up on the mayor, I know the mayor and I have been in a lot of conversations about this issue, and we've been talking with staff, and I know we've both had conversations with our acting police chief, really trying to understand what it is that we are allowed to do and what it is that we are prepared to do. I would encourage staff to make sure that we are communicating that with the public as well, because there is just so much fear in this community and uncertainty around what it is that we are allowed to do and what it is that we are prepared to do in case, as the mayor put it, the fight comes to us. I know my wife is a Mexican immigrant. There are many people in my family on that side that are incredibly fearful and are not leaving the house because of fears that they would be approached, and we know what we've been seeing in other parts of the country, that it does not matter if you are legally allowed to be here, that you may be detained or even killed. And so to make sure that we are not complicit and that we are doing everything in our power to protect our community is, I think, critical. So just want to make sure that we continue that work, and again, encourage staff as well to communicate all with the public as well to try to address some of those fears. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Lithcott-Hames.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your leadership back east and for relaying all of that to us. And thank you, Vice Mayor, for your comments as well. I want to third the idea, I think, that we meet in closed session to talk about whether to file an amicus brief. I would support that. On much lighter notes, I just wanted to give 2 updates on events of last week. One, I want to commend staff for the OSV open house that they ran last Tuesday at Mitchell Park. And forgive me, Councilmember Lowing, if you were going to make a update as the chair of the OSV ad hoc. The entire ad hoc was there, lots of staff were there, and most importantly, a lot of community members came out to really learn more about what the city is doing to address the impacts of RV dwellers and their vehicles on our streets, as well as to learn what the city has in mind by way of additional supports for those folks. So I thought it was well planned, well executed, and well attended, and an example of our efforts to be communicative and transparent on an issue that is quite complex and sensitive to discuss, because there are sort of many, people on both sides, so to speak, of the issue, and often hard to find common ground. So I thought staff did an excellent job, and just want to thank City Manager Shikata, Deputy City Manager Chantel Cotton-Gaines, I think Assistant City Manager Melissa McDonough, and whomever else on the team put that together. It was really excellent. And then I'll just note, in case folks missed it in the newspaper, our prominent regional theater company, TheaterWorks, which was born here in Palo Alto, issued a press release last week indicating a desire to partner with the city to relocate their efforts to the Cubberley Community Center. So this was in the news last week. A lot of outlets picked it up. We are delighted that they believe in the vision that this council has set and that this community is asking for the new Cubberley to be. And they become our second potential partner in the work, the first being the Friends of Palo Alto Recreation and Wellness, with which we already have a letter of intent signed. And so things continue to move forward with Cubberley, and there's nothing like a vote of confidence from a third party to say, we see what you're doing, we like what you're doing, we want to be a part of it. And I think that's the momentum that has come from the letter of intent from Friends of Recreation and Wellness and from the intended partnership with TheaterWorks. So stay tuned for more on Cubberley, but great news last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, and it looks like there are no further comments, so we shall move on to our study session. Item 3, 44 and 48 Encina Avenue. So I don't know if the staff is going to start that presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, City Council. Claire Raybould with our planning operation will give this presentation.
I'll give Mahia a minute. Oh, okay. Oh. She said it has 2 slides per screen. That's weird. Okay. All right, well, we'll work with it then. Good evening, council members. Apparently this is showing 2 slides per screen, so hopefully you can follow along here. So tonight we're here to talk about the 44 and 88 Encina Avenue project, a pre-screening application submitted by Ellis Partners. Council pre-screening process is required for legislative changes, including rezonings, as what's currently planned for this property. The purpose is to provide early feedback. No formal decisions are made at these study sessions, and council members are expected to refrain from forming firm opinions, as the proposal may return for future formal action. If you can move forward. Oh. What? Next slide. Oh, thank you. So the conceptual project is to rezone from community commercial to planned home zoning to allow for 158 residential rental units. And the project proposes 2 7-story structures, including 3 levels of above-grade parking garage. So this would be straddling the 70 Encina project that was recently approved by council for 10 townhomes. And so each side of that project, there would be a structure. The location is the north parking lot of Town and Country Village. And then it's hard to see on this, but we noted where the 70 Encina project is between these two buildings. Next slide. Conceptual project, I just noted out the proposed height is 85 feet where the district allows 50 feet. Lot coverage for each of the respective lots is roughly 93% of Building 1, and on Building 2, it's roughly 71% of the lot, where 50% is typically what's allowed. And Building 1 is proposing 2.86 floor area ratio. Building 2 is proposing a 2.41 to 1 floor area ratio. Typically in this district, only mixed use is allowed, and 0.5 of that is the maximum allowed for total, and 0.15 is the allowance for residential. So this is substantially over what is allowed for residential at these properties. Noting the density, parking services, basically they are replacing 150 parking spaces on the site, surface parking spaces that would be removed. They're also adding 165 residential spaces for the new residential units. And then they would be required to provide 158 bicycle parking spaces as well. Bicycle parking is not fully shown in the plan, in this conceptual plan set. Okay. Bear with us for a moment. Thanks. If you could go to the next slide. All right, bear with us for a moment. Just generally, in terms of the open space, there's a 4th floor wellness deck on both buildings. 7th floor has a sky lounge on both buildings, and then there's a 7th floor sky deck on Building 1. And then these general elevations show views from Town and Country Village. If you could go to the next slide. Oh, okay, sorry. This is the view from Encina Avenue of each of the respective buildings. If you go to the next slide. This is the view from El Camino Real, looking at the end of the buildings. And if you could go to the next slide. And then the view from Caltrain station, or sorry, the Caltrain tracks. And if you could go to the next slide. So just some key considerations for council to think about tonight as you provide your comments. Thinking about the transition to the neighboring context, height and daylight plane, especially as it relates to the 70 Encina project and Town and Country Village behind the properties. And do want to note that Town and Country Village is identified as a historic resource, and so as part of the formal application, we would be evaluating how this project might affect the historic integrity of that neighboring property. I do also want to note that there are 9 existing parcels on this project. And you can see the different parcels in attachment A. The applicant does not intend to merge these parcels to create these 2 buildings. So there would need to be further discussion about how they're intending to do that. There are options that they might be able to consider for that. But I think that further exploration needs to be done if they're not looking to merge those parcels. Consideration of parking and circulation, we talk a little bit about it in the staff report, but there will definitely be analysis of how this will impact traffic and the traffic coming in for this new facility. And And then existing utilities, again, we note in the staff report, but there are existing overhead lines along Encina, and those would need to be undergrounded to generally meet General Order 95 requirements. There would also need to be, there are a number of utilities that run parallel to the Caltrain tracks that would need to be modified or otherwise relocated if feasible for this project. And then just thinking about the public benefits of the project, currently the project would be required to provide 20% of the units at 80% of AMI, which is 32 BMR units. So just your thoughts on the public benefits for this project. Next slide. I do also want to note that SB 79 is an important new law that's coming into effect July 1st, 2026, as I'm sure you're aware. I just wanted to generally note that under this new regulation, they would be allowed to do 65 feet, a floor area ratio of 3.0 to 1, and approximately 100 dwelling units per acre. And if you can go to the next slide. For CEQA status, no review is required under the California Environmental Quality Act for a pre-screening application, but we would analyze in accordance with CEQA for the formal application should it move forward. Next slide. And with that, staff recommends that council conduct a pre-screening, provide informal comments regarding the applicant's request to rezone the property, and reminder that comments are not binding on the city or the applicant. And with that, I'll turn it back to you and recommend that you hear from the applicant.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And yes, I would invite the applicant, if there's someone here to speak on behalf of the applicant tonight. Welcome. If you could just let us know who you are, and then please go ahead.
Good evening. Patrick Flynn with Ellis Partners. Good evening, council members and staff. We're excited to have the opportunity to present our project to you and receive your feedback ahead of a formal development application.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt. Do we usually give 10 minutes? Yeah, Madam Clerk, could you start the clock, please? Thank you. I'm sorry, please proceed.
My name is Patrick Flynn. I'm Senior Vice President with Ellis Partners, and I'm joined here tonight by Jim Ellis, our co-founder and managing principal, as well as Dean Rubinson, who has led our prior efforts on this project. As the leader of our entitlement residential practice, I've been overseeing the project, charged with the design of the high-quality residential development we propose to bring this important site. As you may know, Ellis Partners has been the steward of Town and Country Village for over 20 years. We recognize the important role that Town and Country plays in the community, and that sense of responsibility impacts every decision that we make that could impact the experience of our retailers and those that visit the center. As you may recall, during the 70 Encina entitlement process, we learned from staff that our north parking lots could be developed for residential uses, and also heard repeatedly from this body that the city believes that this is a unique site for residential development and would like to see much higher density than what was proposed for 70 Encina. For the past year, we've been partnering with our architectural team, led by Jones Architecture, to design a high-quality project that achieves our shared goals of meaningfully impacting the local housing shortage while being truly sensitive to this important setting. Our project will provide much-needing housing for the city, will provide additional customers for the businesses at Town and Country Village, and will add to the architectural legacy of Palo Alto. I'm happy to confirm that we're in contract to purchase the property at 70 Encina, a transaction that began after we made this project submittal, and one that we hope will close this spring. We expect that our formal development application will incorporate the 70 Encina parcels into our development so that we can develop a project that spans the entire north side of Town and Country Village. We expect the design of this combined single building project to be quite similar in character to the current design and will provide closer to 200 units of new housing. We discussed this potential change with staff, and they assured us that this PHC pre-screening could still serve to satisfy the requirement of a pre-screening hearing for that future project. With that said, the project we'll be discussing tonight is composed of two structures that are separated by the previously entitled 70 Encina project. Given these considerations, I'd ask that you focus your comments on the project's overall merits and not its relationship to the approved 70 Encina design. I also want to touch on parking, which I know is often a challenge with properties as popular as Town and Country Village. We're committed to replacing every single retail parking space in our new development, and there will be no lost commercial parking spaces. Additionally, we're working to identify a plan for parking during the construction of our project to ensure that construction is as smooth as possible for our tenants and customers. We're eager to hear your feedback on this exciting project and appreciate your patience as we work to create the optimal project for this treasured location. Given the unique history and ownership of these parcels, we do have some challenging utility easement conditions that will require flexibility and creativity of the city's utility groups, and we hope to receive council's support of these efforts. With me here tonight is Alan Jones, the founding principal of Jones Architecture. He will present the project in more detail and will be available should you have any questions.
Hi, Alan Jones, Jones Architecture. Can you go to the next slide, please? It's a little hard for me to read, but thank you very much. So as Patrick mentioned, the project includes two buildings. It's 158 units total. Go to the next slide. The site is located, as you know, adjacent to downtown and Stanford University. It's surrounded, or the streets are El Camino, the bike pathway, and then Encina Boulevard. As Patrick mentioned, that we think the site is perfectly situated for housing. Go to the next slide. I'm just going to give you a couple high level, this is a diagram we put together. The red hatching indicates the portions of the project that there are pedestrian frontages along Encina, along the driveway that enters in to Town and Country, and then back in the back corner along the Paseo. The blue diagrams are pedestrian circulation and vehicular circulation pathways. The green arrows open up to the south. That's the portion of the project that have the views that the building steps back and opens up to. The path of the sun is shown. But high level, the project is taking cues, like our attitude towards designing the project is that it takes cues from the site. And we've really responded to the site context. If you go to the next slide. In terms of the architectural language, the project is directly responding to its context. We've looked closely at Town and Country Village. It has, a craftsman influence and also a mission style influence that we've taken into account. Specifically, it's characterized by low slung red tile roofs, deep porches and overhangs, rich detailing, overall horizontal massing, and warm cladding with texture that is friendly to be around and is rich and inviting. Go to the next slide. This is a vignette that shows the central, there's a central driveway that it connects to Encina from the shopping center. We visualize that as being both pedestrian connectivity as well as the access to the parking. These are early images of the architectural language. The first two floors, which are shown in white, are the parking levels, which are enclosed with a heavy, thick skin that has a light, delicate screening that conceals the cars. Parking is also located on the third level. That level transitions to kind of a screened language that takes cues from the cladding of Town and Country Village, the board and batten siding. And then the body of the building is shown here in the greenish gray color, which again is a warm texture that is similar to Town and Country Village. And the top of the building opens up into covered terraces and roofs and those amenity spaces that open up towards the south. Go to the next slide. Another view showing the pedestrian connectivity along the Paseo with a similar, the building in the background. This is building 2. Go to the next slide. A view along Encina where you can see the parking garage that is the first 2 levels and the 3rd story. I think the great thing about the project is that it's replacing all of the parking within the building, so the parking is concealed We're still developing it, but the parking will be, behind the delicate screening that's shown here. And then you can see the mid-level of the building, which we consider the body of the building, with inset balconies, lots of glazing, and then the open spaces that are the terraces and the roof that cap the buildings. Go to the next slide. An aerial view from Encino showing the two buildings together. You can see the parking along the first two levels. And then if you go to the next slide, I think we've shown modulation. So this is the horizontal modulation. So lots of layering to the project. And if you go to the next slide, it has the vertical modulation. We've broken the building down into distinct modules to help break the massing down. If you go to the next slide. And then the south side of the building that opens up towards the shopping center, the plan of the building are two C-shaped plans that are around central courtyards. You can see the roofs that are responding to the town and country roof. So this layering, stepping back, providing outdoor spaces, and really breaking down the massing. If you go to the next slide, you can see the horizontal articulation with lots of layering. And the next slide shows the vertical modulation. So broken up into small bays, finely modulated, being careful with the scale of the project. You go to the next slide. An overall, project that provides much needed housing. As I mentioned, all of the surface parking is being concealed and located within the building. Full replacement of the parking. The project provides one-to-one parking, or more than one-to-one parking for the residents. And it's still early in the design. We look forward to your feedback, but we think the project is responding to its context and has been designed to be, to fit within the context. So I'll leave it there. We have plans and lots of other diagrams in the appendix if you want to look at those, but I'll leave it to questions. So if you can go to the next slide. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So with that, let's see if, let's go ahead and ask a round of questions, then we'll see if there's public comment, and we can then come back to the dais. So, colleagues? Councilmember Burt.
Thank you. We'll see if my voice holds up. A couple questions related to Encina. First, the entrance is going to be, well, it's more of a comment. The entrance is going to be a tunnel there. Town and Country has 3 entrances. 2 of them are highly congested. The Encina entrance is not. And so I've long thought that we need to accentuate the Encina entrance and perhaps rationalize that by either the addition of a signal or relocation of the signal in front of PAMF. This have to be talked about with them, but if you had northbound cars, ingress and egress, that don't need a signal into the front parking lot at PAMF, the back parking lot would still be from Encina, and I suspect patients would find the new equilibrium, or patients and workers there. But it's long needed that. And this would, we have as you're going southbound on El Camino, the left turn for into Town and Country gets converged with the left turn onto Embarcadero. It's really backed up. This goes back to a 30-year history where we looked at 2 lanes on left turn there and didn't do it at that time, and we were supposed to keep an eye on it and what to do. So I've been advocating for relooking at that signal for a long time, and I think this is the trigger where we should really take a serious look. Comment on the roof tiles, I'm sure ARB will weigh in, but that compatibility visually is really nice as long as we're a bird or an airplane, because it has to have the roof slope or they're not going to be visible from the ground floor, and it will defeat the purpose of that compatibility. So your first rendering showed a relatively flat roof. I'm sure this can be addressed, but from the aesthetics that are going to be real important here, seeing the roof tiles is critical. On the parking in Town and Country, as fewer vacancies are occurring in Town and Country, the parking system capacity there is right now really constrained, and there are still vacancies. So two things that related to this project and the Town and Country that I think can really address that. The first is we have our Palo Alto Transportation Management Association, which provides really effectively transit passes, bicycles, and other vehicles to avoid trip generation. And parking spaces are so expensive and valuable. This is basically a free program for all the employees in Town and Country, and it's been growing throughout the city to really have that be a vital part of this program. It would be the most cost-effective way for you to address your parking problems. Second most cost-effective, or maybe cost-effective, but at least I don't know if it'll be as effective, is improving the bicycling there. The bike racks are still inadequate. It was never designed for a bike destination, but as you're constrained on parking, Palo Alto residents, and certainly from North Palo Alto, getting a portion of them, a higher portion of them, to ride there rather than drive, cuts that incredibly expensive parking expense and allows you to continue to expand the retail, which right now you're constrained from parking. And with that, it'd be racks, more racks in better locations, and addressing a very difficult problem, which would be a bike circulation pattern there. And I don't know how that would be solved, but it's worth taking a hard look at it. And I think that covers all my comments. Real glad to hear that you're working on the 70 Encina being merged here, and it's a very interesting project. Thank you.
Councilmember Liu.
Thank you. I just had a couple of clarifying questions for both staff and potentially the applicant. So there were a couple of things that were noted that I thought were unusual, so I just wanted some clarification or elaboration. One, the point about parcels not being redrawn, and secondly, about utilities. I just want to confirm if you won't comment on any of those points and how to reason about them.
We're not necessarily seeking comments, just I wanted to note those. I think especially the parcel component is a little bit unique. It would be fairly rare to have a building across property lines like this. We did explore with our city attorney as well as with our assistant building official to discuss, is there even a feasible option for this? And it seems like in San Francisco, there may have been some scenarios where you might be able to do kind of a master tenant agreement across the different parcels, and that would allow you to not have firewalls at each parcel line. But I think it's something we have not dealt with in the city of Palo Alto before, and so I think it's something we need to explore further to understand exactly how to make that viable.
Okay, so it may be a technical issue, but not one that has any trade-offs to the city in terms of
correct
land use taxes, anything. Okay. And utilities, I know were flagged by both the applicant and you. Is there anything to note besides that they will be tricky and require coordination and be potentially expensive, but that the applicant would pay for it?
Yeah, the only thing we're still exploring is there are quite a few utilities under the northernmost parcel that's adjacent to the Caltrain tracks. There actually used to be like a private street there, so there are a number of utility easements. And so we have to kind of work out what is feasible to modify and how it might be modified, or if it can be moved. Otherwise, they might need to modify their building so that they're not over those easements. So I think there's going to be a lot more exploration that needs to happen for those particular utilities. Along the frontage, it's more just about undergrounding the utility lines. 70 and Cena had planned to underground at least one of the lines. Because this is a higher development, I think all of the lines are going to need to be undergrounded.
Okay, thank you.
Other clarifying questions? Councilmember Lithcott-Haynes.
Let me just stick with my clarifying question only. I appreciate the reminder. This is a question for staff. Thank you for the presentation. And I know in the staff report, it indicated that this was not a housing inventory site designated in our housing element. And I wonder if you can clarify for the public what that means. What does it mean when you decide to put housing where you didn't say you were going to put housing? Does that help us? Does that harm us in any way? I think people will be interested.
Sure, of course. You can still place housing, and it would still count toward our regional housing needs allocation, even if it's not on our housing inventory site. What it would mean if it was on the housing inventory is that housing inventory sites can do exclusively residential, even if the zoning might not allow exclusively residential. In this case, it's not on our housing inventory, and the site currently as zoned doesn't allow for exclusively residential. It only allows for mixed use. So it would just be that as part of the rezoning process, that would be a request that they're making as part of their proposal.
Thank you. I think the rest of what I'd like to say are comments, so I will end here.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Just want to hear from the public, and then we can comment on what they say as well. So, Madam Clerk, would you please guide us through any public comment on this item?
Yes, we have three requests to speak on study session item 3. Correction, 4 requests to speak. Our first speaker is Herb B.
The mention of SB 79, I don't know which of those existing 9 parcels would fall within that law, but it seems to me it's reasonable to assume that it would apply only to those parcels that did and not apply to merging parcels and apply to all of them. There's also a question of, let me get my notes here, that there what was using the PHZ zone. I believe that needs, as I've stated a number of times, an amendment to the zoning code. And each time it's been brought up, staff has given a different reason of why it didn't. And so I think that would be important. In terms of the application itself, I recall another application going forward with these addresses, 44 and 88 in Cena, that included fewer parcels, in which it was claimed that it was a housing inventory site. And I point out, as I did now, that only the parcel close to the tracks is the one that's a housing inventory site, and combining merging parcels and thus grant the same rights to the other parcels. There's also the question of whether you need any restrictions on who can purchase or lease the property, because when Stanford dropped its previous request for amendments to its community plan, the Board of Supervisors under Supervisor Simonian's leadership required in the community plan housing as mitigation on the campus site, but also could use then existing sites that Stanford owned. And I believe there should be deed restrictions for all transfers that these units cannot be sold or leased to Stanford University. And the current supervisor has also indicated that Stanford needs to provide its mitigation on housing on its own campus. So as this goes forward, I don't know, whether this is the actual proposal we're being asked to do. For at one point in the previous application, staff said it was housing inventory site, and it didn't include the parcel that really is on the housing inventory site. And now staff is saying it's not a housing inventory site. So we may just be getting lots of comments and questions from the council and public for an SB 79 application. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jonathan G.
Firstly, thank you for your service, especially in the evening hours. It's much appreciated. I want to address the proposition at the Town and Country Center, which was item 3 on the agenda. I have a few pages that I distributed that you could share between one another. The council is very aware that retail in the city of Palo Alto is at a low. There are empty storefronts on California Avenue, on downtown Palo Alto and El Camino, and the city is doing various missions to revive retail, such as changing zoning, converting some retail to gyms, loosening some regulations. At the same time, there are also protests at the corner of El Camino Real and Embarcadero. They are on the sidewalk, which is public property, but sometimes they spill over into town and country. Some shoppers feel unsafe. Occasionally a flag is hung on town and country property. So the goal, I hope, is that shoppers and retailers should be made to feel safe in their experiences. I will give you one example. In 2024, my son was an employee at a clothing store at Stanford Mall. There was a demonstration in October of that year. The Apple store was defaced and vandalized. A policeman's foot was run over when he was giving chase. And I hope that incidents like this, my son was actually escorted out the back door for his own safety of the shop where he was working. So I hope an incident like this will never happen again, and that the council will do what it can to ensure safety of the public, the retailers, and the customers at Town and Country. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Adam S.
Good evening. My name is Adam Schwartz. I am here tonight on behalf of the Palo Alto Forward, where I am a member and volunteer. I'm also here as a 10-year resident who lives around the corner and raised my kids here in Palo Alto. I want to thank all 7 members of the City Council, as well as our city staff, for the great work that's been going on for years now in building more homes. The Palo Alto Forward is in strong support of building new homes at the Town and Country Mall, as we're discussing tonight. We hope that the City Council and the city staff will be as encouraging as possible to the owners of the mall and these developers to put up homes. I visit the mall regularly as a driver, a walker, and a biker, and I think this is an excellent place for 150 or many more new homes. It is near buses and trains and bike lanes and stores, and because it's here in Palo Alto, perhaps most importantly, it is near jobs. My mother would like to move from out of town to Palo Alto. My kids who grew up here would like to stay in Palo Alto. And the kinds of apartments that could be built in these new homes are exactly the kinds of place it would be great for them to live. And so, again, thank you to all of you for your support for years of new homes. And the Palo Alto Forward urges you to give as much encouragement as possible to building these new homes at this location. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Deborah G.
I was unable to get an answer to this question. I don't know if these apartments that are being built for sale, for individual homeownership, or are they being built by a real estate investment trust for rental? This is a big concern of mine because I know that Redwood City has fulfilled its housing mandate by allowing corporate entities to build massive rental units. And right now, the city of Redwood City Council is getting an earful from tenants because these corporate owners are raising prices on the rentals in coordination with each other and squeezing the renters. I don't think that having massive units being built just for corporate ownership and corporate profit in perpetuity is to the benefit of the community. About traffic, I mean, if they are being built for purchase and for home ownership, I think it's a great project. About traffic in and out of Town and Country Village, the problems with the entrance in and out of Embarcadero are on the city of Palo Alto. It is the city of Palo Alto that could mitigate the problems of traffic on the Embarcadero entrance. It's some traffic engineering, and I have been mentioning this to transportation for a couple of years. Bye.
And that concludes public comment on study session item 3.
All right, thank you. Thank you to the public, and thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll bring it back here to the dais for whatever you want to do. Questions, comments, but providing the advice sought tonight. Councilmember Lithcott-Hames.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the members of the public who spoke. I want to disclose, I'm not sure we're required to in a study session, but out of an abundance of caution, I want to disclose that I have met with members of the Ronald and Ann Williams Charitable Foundation Board, which is the landowner of this property, and Town and Country Village, and with representatives from Ellis Partners, the long-term leaseholder from whom we've heard tonight, to the Williams Board and members of Ellis Partners and the Jones and BDE architecture firms. I want to begin with gratitude that you have heeded our call for partners to help us get housing built in this city, that you heard in our conversations with the folks who own 70 Encina a need for much higher density in this setting, that you are making consistent efforts to purchase that property, getting you to a much more coherent housing project in the aggregate on that back parking lot and closer to 200 units, which is incredibly exciting. The 158 is already very exciting. That you will take your architectural cues from Town and Country Village makes perfect sense, but I just want to acknowledge that that is a beautiful plan. I love those red tile roofs, and of course they evoke not just Town and Country Village, but Stanford University right across the street. So it's bringing, an architecture many of us cherish into the modern era, and I just love to see that replicated, and it feels really appropriate across from the university as well as adjacent to the village. I agree with my colleague, Councilmember Burt's concern on the slope of those roofs so that they can be visually appreciated closer to the project. Love the plan for decks at a few different levels in those residential towers and the ways in which it's stepped back as it gets higher. And I will echo the concerns about the traffic flow that we've heard tonight from my colleague and public commenter. The way that I frame it is, you're going to have hundreds of residents now, and they're going to be bringing in additional traffic. And as you get those retail vacancies filled, it just looks as if we're in for a potential snarl. And of course, there are extra safety sensitivities, given that Palo Alto High School is across the street, and we know that the Pali kids really enjoy, there's a special light just for them, speaking of traffic flow. They love to come across to the village to get an ice cream or, shop at CVS or whatever the case may be. And so figuring out that flow of traffic so that your commercial customers and your residents are in harmony with one another. The last thing we want is, those people who live there are screwing up our parking at Town and Country. And so I know you'll keep your eye on that, but to me, I see that as the largest concern. And again, just thank you so much. It's very exciting to see this.
Councilmember Liu.
Thank you. I'd like to echo Councilmember Lithcott-Hames's comments. I really appreciate housing at this location. I think the public benefit of the affordable units is strong. I really appreciate the work to unify this project with 70 Encina. I will also echo the comment that I really like the design. I like the materials. I like how there are some efforts to make this green, like I saw at least ivy on at least one of the coverings, though I would always love to see more planting in future plans on upper levels. I really like how it's just a very serious and clean building, but it also has that local context and that slightly fun postmodernism. I did have comments on circulation. I think above-grade parking is always, underground is always better, but I understand the costs. I don't know if undergrounding will ever become possible for at least one of the levels at any point over the development process. On cycling, I know these plans are tentative, but in one of the slides, the bike room is sort of off to the far side of the development. I'm not sure if there's another bike room that I'm missing, but a bike room or bike parking should be reasonably accessible to all of the residents. I'll echo the point that just getting more bike racks in general, including outside the building, along the alleys and other contexts for visitors would be a plus. I am not sure what the bike circulation looks like for the roadway that goes under the building that already exists within Town and Country. I imagine bikes will take it. I also imagine that'll be reasonably designed so that it'll be well lit, preferably have some actual space for bikes or pedestrians so that that walkway can be safe. People will very often not realize there's a paseo or just walk or bike there along the roadway anyways. I think the only other thing that I'd think about and continue to look at in future plans is what access looks like from the Embarcadero bike path, making sure that that feels open and welcoming. And I'd also be curious what that alley between Town and Country and the project looks like in future developments, just making sure that that is also a safe road, and preferably as planting or as pedestrian friendly. So those are my comments. I appreciate this coming before us, and I look forward to seeing the next version.
Vice Mayor Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I echo what I've heard so far and concerns about the rooftop as far as being able to see those tiles better, circulation concerns as well. But generally, I think this is a really good project in a great location. So I'm happy to see it move forward, and can't get much of a better location for housing with shopping, Caltrain, Stanford, El Camino Real, kind of everything central there. I really do think it is a beautiful design that fits into the character of that part of town, and as mentioned, blends Town and Country and Stanford University. Really do think it's a beautiful project. I appreciate the good mix of unit sizes, and we're getting a good amount of 2- and 3-bedroom units, and we're always talking about the need for family-sized units, and this will be able to achieve that. For me, I'm happy to see that this is a rental project. We don't see too many apartments coming forward, and so to see more of that is, I think, a good thing. I mean, we're going to need to have a balance of that, and most of what we get are condos. So I think that is a good thing. In addition to just some of the concerns, and I think pretty modern concerns, I'm concerned about. So I think just the lack of parking, given 165 are proposed, and our code would typically require 218 for that proposed use. But I think given the proximity of this project to public transportation and different types of public transportation, VTA, Caltrain, good bike routes, great pedestrian access to shopping, entertainment districts, jobs. I think it's going to, I think it'll be fine. I'm also more comfortable with the kind of the inadequate parking, just given the nature of this location. I think oftentimes we raise concerns about potential spillover of underparked projects into residential neighborhoods, and then cars kind of adding up into those neighborhoods. That seems really challenging in this particular location, given the surrounding uses. And I know there's going to be a lot of partnership with Town and Country, and Town and Country has always been really good at enforcing their own kind of parking. I remember as a student at Pali getting several parking tickets anytime I tried to park at Town and Country. So I know they're on it. And and appreciate the clarification tonight then on the BMR units, because that was my only other concern kind of coming into tonight, since that wasn't yet known to us. So I think the 20% at 20% BMR at 80% AMI, I think that's a good number to be at this project. So thank you for bringing this forward, working on it. I'm excited to see about the potential deal with your neighbor, because I know that the height issues could be a challenge. So to know that we can get a project that's going to be even more compatible and potentially provide even additional units is a really exciting opportunity, and I'm looking forward to whatever kind of variation this then comes back to us. So thank you again. Those are my comments.
Councilmember Lowing.
Thanks very much. So yes, to the applicant, phenomenal progress since we talked about it being a good idea. So you've come a long way from a good idea to I think what could be a remarkable project. And stepping up to ownership instead of just land lease, that suggests that you're getting kind of serious about this. So really glad to see the commitment to the areas for all the things that you said, but we've all talked about, which is because of all of the proximity to so many things there. It's just the right place to do it, and so I thank you for that. Echoing a couple things that have been said by staff and my colleagues here, sort of my biggest concern is the access and circulation. We have to turn over every stone to figure out what to do there, because that could stop a magnificent project. So I know we're all committed to that, but it could be a crisis if it doesn't work. The other thing I wanted to comment on was somewhat similarly to Vice Mayor Stone. Totally appreciate that you're replacing all the parking that's going away, and that you're providing adequate parking for the new residents, not leaning on the state law so that you don't have to do anything, which is not good for anybody, including the developer, always in my opinion. But the issue of, you're still going to get some ceiling there where you just can't squeeze any more customers in there. You're already there now, so just replacing those parking spots doesn't get you very far. And yes, we're all hopeful that folks will bike and take buses, but we don't know that. So if there's any way you can take another look at that, as expensive as it is, and that was also noted, it just gives you more headroom to do growth there. The other thing that's just, to me, is a big, huge, expensive question mark right now is all that utility stuff. So I know we're all sort of looking at that and say we don't know the answers yet, but we have to figure out a cooperative way to get through that. And then some of the issues basically on packet page 13 and slide 8, talk about the transitions. Ideally, 85 feet would be a little bit smaller, but that has its downside, so I don't think it'd be pushing on that. We always get questions about daylight planes on projects like this. It's very sensitive to the residents that are already there, that are your neighbors. Same thing with more or less eliminating any setbacks in areas. if there are ways you can sort of soften that approach, that would be helpful. And then I will also do my one ARB offering here, which is that I love the terracotta, but I think there should be more facing terracotta to go with your project. But I think we'll be supportive of this, and you're meeting the 20% affordable, which is the baseline, and doing the mix of units, as Vice Mayor said as well. So I think this is really good progress, and appreciate it.
Councilmember Rickdahl.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I'm very positive on this design. Beautiful architecture. It's a great location. It's close to downtown. It's close to the train station. It's even a 10-minute bike ride to the Research Park. So if you work in the Research Park, you could live here and have a wonderful commute. Instead of sitting on El Camino, you could ride your bike. And frankly, it's probably faster to ride your bike to the Research Park than it would be to drive. So I think this is a really good spot for biking. My family rented a 2-bedroom apartment, and we had 4 bikes in their bike room. And so you have right now 1 bike per unit. I really would love to see that 1 bike per bedroom. I think there's going to be demand here. You're right next to the bike lane there, and Palo Alto is such a great bike network. I think a lot of people are going to be using the bikes there. So I would like to increase the bike parking if possible. Yeah, well, thank you also for the 70 Encina. This makes a better design, better urban design, better product. That's a really big improvement. I thank you very much for pursuing that. Some Me Too's with Councilmember Burt. The Palo Alto TMA passes. I think that'd be a really good product to incorporate. Encina Light, I think the Encina Light would be great because it would take pressure off Embarcadero, may improve the circulation throughout the town and country. It also gives you a much better ride. If you're biking there to Stanford, you now can go take that right over to Stanford, as opposed to without a light at Encina, you'd have to wiggle around and cross at Embarcadero. So I think there's a lot of advantages to having a bike light, a light at Encina. In the design, is there a spot for Uber pickups or DoorDash drop-offs? I'm not sure if this is for the applicant or for the staff.
I don't know offhand. I don't know if the applicant can answer that.
I'll say that we're not at that level of development of the design, but are well aware of the prevalence of those types of services, so we would accommodate something similar.
Okay, very good.
What often comes with that, though, is a loss of street parking, so we would just ask for, flexibility within, losing a street space to allow for a white zone or that sort of thing.
The problem is that if there's not parking there, they're going to double park.
Right.
And that's where, and this will become, it's a really quiet street right now. There is going to be more traffic on it.
Yes.
And I don't think we want to make Uber people block our traffic. So it's a known, it will happen.
Yes.
So make sure we plan for that. Let's see, is there anything else? And no, I just thought, I'm very glad you brought this. I'm very glad it expanded into a single design. It's going to be a great improvement. Thank you.
All right, well, I'm going to make it unanimously positive comments. You've gotten some pretty strong feedback tonight, and there's not a lot left to say. I generally agree with the comments that have gone before, but I'm very excited that you're under contract for 70 Encina. I love that you can then sort of think about these buildings collectively. That's a unique, well, not unique, but rare circumstance, and oftentimes you're trying to look at one or the other. So that's a great opportunity. Do you have any present intention to perhaps revise the other 70 or do anything to make them more cohesive as a whole, or what are your thoughts?
We anticipate that our formal application will be a single unified project that spans all across all the parcels.
Okay.
So rather than having a building 1, building 2 that has the kind of missing tooth, as we called it, on the site there, we'll have the whole north side of the property to work with.
Okay, so whereas the drawings we have tonight have that.
Correct, yeah, they have the
tooth.
missing tooth, they have the project as approved is in there because this was submitted prior to our going into contract on the property.
Right. Great. Well, I'm eager to see how that enhances things when you're able to do that.
Thank you.
And I echo the comments on parking. I really appreciate that you recognized and accommodate the town and country customers, their parking loss with the 3 stories of parking that you're contemplating. Just quickly, just to answer the member of the public's questions, do you anticipate these would be rentals or condos?
We're preparing for rental units, yes.
Okay, at this point. Okay, I think then the last thing I would mention is also a +1 to just needing to keep a close eye on traffic circulation. I think a lot of people cut through from Embarcadero over to PAMF, to the Medical Foundation now, and that's, not necessarily the right thing, but it's an actual thing. So if that becomes less available, it's just going to be part of the overall management of that area as the design moves forward. So great, and appreciate the 20% BMR. Like I said, a good mix of housing, like the red tile roofs. So it's just a +1 to pretty much what you've heard.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Burt, your voice is up for a little more?
Just 2 additions.
Okay.
That I should have mentioned before. One is that if there is a movement toward utilizing Encina as a gateway entrance to town and country, then signage will be really important at El Camino, but also really prominently where that tunnel is on the building, because it's not a natural kind of intuitive entrance. And then the other thing is, I got thinking about the real challenge you're going to have during construction mitigating that parking loss, and it's the employee parking that you can mitigate. You can't tell customers to go to some satellite parking and take a bus in. And so utilizing the Palo Alto TMA for that purpose, and then extending it long-term, I really recommend it. It's free to you and very effective. Thanks.
Thank you. And with that, seeing no more lights, I think we will close this session with gratitude to the applicants for coming and bringing this forward to us today. Thank you. And to staff. All right, so next up we have our consent calendar. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
No request to speak and no hands are raised.
Okay, colleagues, do we have any no votes or request to poll? Seeing none,
I'll move the consent calendar.
thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Let's go to a vote. We are efficient tonight. We are on it.
Mayor Vinker?
Yes.
Councilmember Lowing?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stone?
Yes.
Councilmember Rectal?
Yes.
Councilmember Liu?
Yes.
Councilmember Burt?
Yes.
Councilmember Lithcott-Hames?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. And with that, we're on to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got to get the city clerk's assistance with a few slides. This will also, I think, be pretty expedient. Next slide, please. Just want to ensure we've got public awareness that we have mosquito treatment. This will be aerial mosquito treatment in the Baylands starting this Wednesday or on this Wednesday. We would typically have a little more lead time, but with ongoing regional activities, including this being Super Bowl week, I think communication is a little more compressed and wanting to ensure that this work occurs in a timely manner, but also respecting a variety of constraints over the week. So with that, additional information will be following for the public in terms of which trails may still be available on Wednesday. But again, just ensuring public awareness of this. Next slide, please. Also looking for public awareness of vegetation removal or reduction that's being undertaken with our partners at the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council, as well as a number of other agencies in the vicinity of the 280 freeway and Page Mill Road. This really to reduce fire fuel and as such, as a preventative measure in our wildland interface. So again, this work will be ongoing throughout the week, and as motorists and residents see activity in the area, they'll know what it's about. Next slide, please. And then looking forward, this being the first meeting in February, we have a number of events over the course of the month, and would simply like to refer community members to our website, paloalto.gov/February festivities. The largest, I think, here is the Lunar New Year Fair at Mitchell Park on February 22nd, Sunday, the 22nd. So want to ensure that we flag that for community members, as well as all the other events noted here, not the least of which is the summer camp registration that folks put in their calendar, ensure that they're able to sign up right away. Next slide, please. Then finally, just looking forward to a few of the upcoming city council meetings. I believe, yes, we did. We were able to get on March 2nd, the rescheduled Sustainability Climate Action Plan work plan. So the item 8 that's being deferred from this evening is now scheduled for March 2nd. Let me just go quickly through the others. Next week on the 9th, we've got a weed abatement public hearing, Coverly project update, and the council's procedures and protocol handbook update. Then no meeting on the week of February 16th with the holiday, President's Day holiday. Then next meeting being on February 23rd. Currently scheduling a report from our oversized vehicle ad hoc committee, and time-sensitive items are in the mid-year budget actions, as well as the follow-up from your retreat on the 2026 council objectives and work plans. And then the first meeting in March, a study session on Palo Alto Link. Again, the rescheduled SCAP, as well as the reliability and resiliency plan, and then a number of other items scheduled beyond that, just listed for awareness. And with that, Mayor, back to you.
All right, thank you. So we are scheduled for a break. We are quite ahead of schedule, so I don't know if anybody needs a break. I would, seeing no's, what I would just ask is, could we have a slow transition? Just give me a couple of minutes and we'll keep going, but then we'll move on to our action item. I'll be right back. All right, we are back, and we will move on to our single action item of the night, approval of FY 2026 ARB, HRB, PTC, and UAC work plans. All right.
And I hope the public's able to follow our acronyms there, but it will, I think, be explanatory in a moment. So our thought in terms of working through this item, again, the council knows this, but for public awareness, this has previously been scheduled as a consent item prior to the end of the calendar year, given that the agendas were pretty packed at the time. We've subsequently, or this was pulled, and as such, we have it scheduled for action. Our thought on the staff presentation is to go through all of the commissions and then allow the council, as you please, to then turn to questions on individual commissions. So with that, let me ask our staff leads for all 4 commissions to proceed, leading with Assistant Director Armour from our Planning Development Services Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Jennifer Armour, Assistant Director of Planning and Development Services. And I am going to present to you 3 of the work plans that we have for your discussion this evening. 2 of those are also on behalf of Stephen Switzer, our Senior Historic Planner, who's the staff liaison for the Architectural Review Board and the Historic Resources Board. We have asked the chairs of each of these boards and commissions to join us. Some are available in person. I think we've got 1 or 2 who might be joining us remotely because you're so ahead of schedule. So thank you. Next slide.
We want them to be done early, too.
So first, we have the Architectural Review Board. Next slide. As provided in the accomplishments section of the work plan that was presented in your staff report packet, the ARB continues to be very busy. They reviewed at least 20 projects over the year, including, we've got a couple of examples here where you've got the before and the after, the changes to the looks of those projects. They provided input on numerous standards, guidelines, ordinances, and plans, and they selected 6 winners out of over 100 potential projects for the 2025 Design Awards. The winning projects are pictured at the bottom of this slide. Next slide. For the work plan that was approved last July, the Architectural Review Board listed out the items that they spend their most time on and the things that they think are important for the coming year. First, of course, is the review of planning applications, but also providing feedback to staff and council on the creation of new guidelines, ordinances, streetscapes, and assisting the city in consideration of modifications to standards. In addition, reviewing and discussing and providing feedback on area plans and streetscape improvements, and working to improve coordination between the Architectural Review Board and the other boards, commissions, and councils. We will continue on now to the next slide with the Historic Resources Board. Next slide. So for the accomplishments for the previous year, again, very busy year, and they had 21 new properties that were added to the historic inventory, 5 projects considered and recommended for upgrades on that inventory, category upgrades, 5 development proposals, including this example shown on the screen at 1023 Forest Avenue, which was a rehabilitation. You can see the original photo from the early 1900s before it was damaged in the earthquake, and in the center there, the image of what is proposed to restore that. In addition, they also have now established a local historic preservation award program that we do anticipate holding early this year. Next slide. So the work plan, as listed by the HRB and recommended last July, included 5 items. 1, consideration of some modifications to the code to clarify the HRB's role. 2, education and other resources online. Also preparing an update to local inventory resources, resource list, additional preservation incentives, consideration and recommendation, and establishing that historic preservation award program. The HRB members have already started research into many of these work plan items, though they understand that additional council direction would be required to allocate staff time to these efforts. Next slide. And so then the third item that I am presenting tonight before we move on to utilities is the Planning and Transportation Commission. The accomplishments listed in your packet are very extensive. They did a lot of work over that year. I can't list them all. It was hard to try and summarize and provide you examples, but they provided input on 9 different transportation efforts. They worked on at least 9 different comprehensive plan, housing element, implementation, and council priority tasks. And they reviewed the components of 6 different development projects. Some examples listed here include the Palo Alto Link, the Safety Action Plan, the El Camino Real Retail Node Map, and a 100% affordable housing project at 3265 El Camino Real. Next slide. For the upcoming year, or the year that we're in the middle of now, they have prepared a list of 9 items. Some of these are carryover from previous years, but also some are added to the end to recognize the expansive work that the Planning and Transportation Commission does. So work on the retail ordinance update, area planning, housing element program implementation, state law implementation, parking programs, bike and ped transportation plan update, comprehensive plan policy implementation, zoning code updates, and project review. With that, that concludes my presentation on the Planning and Transportation Commission, and so I will pass it on to Director Curatori to present the Utilities Advisory Commission work plan.
Good evening, Alan Curatori, Director of Utilities. Thank you very much for this brief introduction. Next slide, please. So the Utility Advisory Commission also had a very busy year as well. So they review all of the utility rates. So our revenues are $470 million a year. So it's a significant level of effort for our commission. I did want to mention that they also included a look at voluntary electric or residential time of use rates as well, and made some recommendations on that implementation, which will be coming to and open to the city later this year. I want to also mention they recommended to retain our Western Area Power Administration hydroelectricity base resource contract. So that is a 30-year agreement. It's executed every 5 years, and that represents about 40% of our carbon-free energy supply for the city. And this brings us tying into our integrated resource plan, which gets us to our 60% by 2030 goal. So it really ties in that all together. Next slide, please. So the main issue for the Utility Advisory Commission is they're our key commission that looks at our utilities wildfire mitigation plan, but also our grid modernization. I'm going to hit the utilities wildfire mitigation plan first because that's a picture of one of our staff removing some of the poles. So this mitigation plan is updated annually, and this year we're talking to the commission about updating our PSPS notification process. So how we communicate to the public, both in text and notifications. We really took a look at what the other agencies around us are doing to make sure that we were consistent with that process and that we brought that to the commission. Also wanted to highlight the grid modernization program as well. As part of the accomplishments, we gave them an update. This is an annual update that we provide. It's a major multi-year effort for the utility, and also looking at our construction of our fiber system. And then had a very good and robust discussion on the need and recommendation for a second transmission corridor. As the council may recall, that we were successful working with the CAISO So, kind of spoiler alert, that project is moving forward along a existing PG&E transmission, and we are very hopeful to move that project forward into the 2030 timeline. Next slide. So this is the annual work plan. It's a relatively long list. I want to provide just a very high-level highlight of the annual look at. So the utility rates are key for us in terms of affordability to our customers. So one of the key initiatives that the UAC is bringing forward is actually charging credit card fees to our residents and businesses so that there is not an additional cost to our ratepayers. So that's a part of our cost recovery. We have brought forward that to the UAC. We anticipate that will save approximately $1.2 million a year in additional revenues to make sure that we keep our low rates. And then they have provided feedback, especially for our utility rates and our water supply. One of the items we're bringing forth to the commission is data center competitiveness. So data centers, as you know, AI, looking at bringing more of those customers to Palo Alto as part of our mix. So that is coming to the commission in February. And then our capital projects and our grid modernization. So we have taken a hard look at the grid modernization project in terms of a phasing, incorporating the second transmission line, and looking to make sure that we're bringing forth the projects, especially for our receiving stations. We understand some of the issues in regards to supply chain. It takes about 4 years to get transformers now. So we have a multi-year project now where we've taken into account those projects and looking at how we can integrate them affordably for our customers. The major initiative is fiber to the premises. Very detailed discussions on the amount of take rate, how we're going to outreach to our customers and customer satisfaction, what we call cost per passing, how much it takes to get to each customer, and then our cash flow projections. This will be an ongoing effort, as I know the community is very interested in moving that forward. And then, of course, the long-term strategy for our natural gas utility. There was a gas transition plan that was brought forth, not only to the UAC, but to SCAP. So our next phases there is looking at our engineering modeling. So what will that look like as customers move and electrify, and how can we cost effectively kind of reduce the size of the natural gas utility by also keeping it affordable and serving our customers. So that's a highlight of the work plan, and here to answer any questions. I did want to mention Chair Greg Scharf is here as well, so feel free to ask him the difficult questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from staff?
That's it.
Okay, so it looks like we have 2 chairs here and a couple others online. Terrific. Let's take public comment first.
No requests to speak and no hands are raised in Zoom.
Okay, great. All right, colleagues, questions, comments? Vice Mayor Stone.
Well, first, no real concerns. Love that the HRB is doing that historical preservation award. That sounds great. I'm excited to learn more about that and hopefully be able to participate as an observer at whenever that happens. So hopefully staff can keep us updated on that. My only question, potential concern regarding the ARB, when will the ARB be getting to reviewing and recommending aesthetic standards for wireless communication facilities? I was just a bit concerned that on goal 2, it says that work is lower priority, and so not sure what the implications are on it being a lower priority for when that work will be completed.
Thank you for that question, and we may have more to add, but at a high level, because we have so many housing projects coming through and other priority applications, it is part of work plan balancing. We do have that on our list of tasks, but it isn't something we've been able to develop and bring forward just yet.
Okay, we think in this calendar year at least?
We do hope to.
Okay, but maybe second half, first half?
Correct.
Okay, second half.
I suspect it will be part of your discussion on February 23rd when we bring the objectives back for the council discussion.
Great, and then just, is staff waiting on that guidance from, I mean, I know we'll be discussing it, but ultimately is that's going to require ARB review?
I think as currently scoped, it would involve both ARB as well as staff work, and I'm sure city attorney's office work. And so I know staff is looking at a more streamlined way to proceed, and would expect to make that part of your discussion.
All right. And we're currently operating under the current standards until those new ones are adopted. Okay. Thank you. That's it for me.
Councilmember Liu?
Thank you. I just had a few questions and comments, but I'll just start with an expression of gratitude for all of our commission and board members, and I hope that the chairs here can take that message to their committees, because it is a serious amount of work, as we've seen, and I have seen through every commission that commission and board members really go above and beyond, and that when they are appointed, maybe they are an enthusiast or a sort of casual sort of community voice on a topic, but then they become serious experts and become really invested in the work. So I'm just so grateful that we have these good plans to pour over. I had a couple of questions about the ARB to start. So I know we've been thinking about working on the SOFA objective standards, both part of it's part of the housing element. I think it's been on the queue for a little bit. SB 79, I think, would cover most, if not all, of the SOFA area. And so are we rethinking, or are we able to pivot and make sure that the objective standards are focused on around an SB 79 implementation? And do we have the right hooks so that, depending on what the SB 79 ad hoc decides, that the objective standards are appropriate for the densities that are decided there?
Thank you for that question. For the implementation of the housing element, there is a program that is targeted at the SOFA guidelines and making those into objective standards. A component of that also was to encourage additional density in that area. And as you stated, we expect that SB 79 will affect that component of that. However, creating objective standards based on the SOFA guidelines is something that is still part of our proposed work plan in terms of implementing the housing element. So that is still something that's anticipated to move forward.
Right. But I think in the context of SB 79, and this is very approximate, I could definitely be getting things wrong, it's that local standards that make that level of housing intensity and height impossible can de facto be ignored. So if our objective standards are focused on the kind of structures or density or housing that may not actually get proposed, we could be missing a chance to create objective standards that are more suitable for the projects that might happen.
Thank you. That is correct. That as we go through and review the current non-objective standards, the guidelines that are included in SOFA, and convert those into objective standards, we would be working to make sure they're consistent with state law as well, specifically SB 79.
Okay. Okay, it sounds like we are tracking this, and I don't need any other positive reassurance that the work will be sequenced appropriately such that it won't be made redundant and that it will be integrated with the ad hoc work. Okay. Another point was that I see on the streetscape improvement section and the area plan section that California Ave is considered, University Ave is considered, but Ramona is not considered. Is that right? Could we both take Ramona and California Ave together? And of course, depending on bandwidth and what staff finds in terms of feasibility of University Ave plans, that should potentially be, or probably be deprioritized.
I would say that since Ramona is not listed here, that does not mean that they would not review it if it was ready to move forward.
Okay. I think one lesson we should generally take from my interpretation of what's happened in the retail committee is that Ramona and Cal-Ave generally, that the principles are generally similar, that the kinds of structures allowed are generally similar. And so there should be some flexibility. Okay. Okay, on HRB, I like that we're thinking more about education. I hope that, I always had this thought in the back of my mind that we should have a signage program similar to a lot of East Coast cities where you literally put a sign in the ground and say, this is where something historically significant happened, because there's a lot of that in Palo Alto. That's a total aside. The only thing I did have on HRB is that I think prioritizing zoning incentives is useful and maybe the most effective way to preserve history given zoning and state law. I am over time. I had much briefer notes on PTC and UAC, so maybe I'll come back to that later, but thank you.
Councilmember Burt.
Thank you. So I have comments on 3 of the boards and then some overview comments on the process. So what I don't get to, hopefully get in a second round. First on the ARB, on, this is page, packet page, I think 97, no, excuse me, 94, project goal 2, which is on the creation of new guidelines, ordinances, and streetscape. It says that ARB would have unique feedback, basically, on the aesthetic environment. And the staff report referenced under the mission statement the 4 sections of the zoning code that really pertain to ARB's role, and got me to go back and read this because we've had this issue of at times where the ARB has really been wading in on a number of urban design related aspects of projects. And there was a question whether they're kind of stepping outside their lane. And when I read it is chapter 18.76.020. It's really interesting because they give 5 purposes to the ARB, and one's the aesthetic, and the other 4 really relate to urban design. And so I had underappreciated just how much their mandate really does relate to urban design. It's not just the parcel, and it's not just the aesthetics. It's how it really works in the whole fabric, which goes to a long time issue, which is, well, wait a minute, that crosses over to some of what the Planning and Transportation Commission does. And this has always been kind of a tension and rubbing elbows, and we've never really sat down and said, well, what are those respective roles? If both have a role, then how do we more efficiently address that? Should they be doing that together? Should they be informed by each other's opinions that way? So I don't know the answer, but I would like to see that added to the work plan to address that issue. And then second, the issue of the SOFA development that Councilmember Liu mentioned is an important one. When we establish the SB 79 ad hoc, we definitely said, well, one of the purposes there is to understand whether to fold the downtown housing plan into that, continue, struggle with that. But it should actually be the downtown housing plan and the SOFA plan, and figure out how we reconcile that. But once related to that is, what's the PTC, and for that matter, the ARB role, as we try to quickly struggle through the momentous impacts of SB 79. And I don't want us on the ad hoc committee to be attempting to come up with those solutions along with staff in the absence of the input and real thoughtful input from ARB and PTC, because this is really going to be significant to the community. And then I saw a note that they had in there on proposing that the objective standards for townhomes on multifamily be extended to objective standards for multi-story projects, and that seems like a really good recommendation. And their own recommendation that there be work to figure out how to streamline and coordinate between, maybe this was more the PTC and HRB. And so on several themes here, as we're looking at streamlining our processes, not only do we look at reducing the time and the expense involved, but how do we better integrate the insights of these boards and commissions, rather than we just have alternately, here's the insight of one commission, here's of another, and we get here and we referee, but they aren't getting informed of each other often. Sometimes they are, but not necessarily, and not in an environment where they can actually have discourse and understand why are they proposing something that's different on ARB from that, or just feeding off of each other. I just think we need to look at how to improve the processes to reduce the time and expense and improve the quality at the same time. Okay, so I will defer to the next round for the rest.
Councilmember Rectal.
Okay, thank you. First, just an overall comment. Both PTC and ARB quite often send representatives when they've reviewed a project to council, and they usually sit there, and we never ask them anything. And it really would be nice to make that as just a standard process, that we always ask them for their opinions, because they've worked really hard on this. They have some insight that may save us a lot of time. Also, yeah, thank you for the COSA report. UAC did a lot of work on that, saved us a lot of time, and we appreciate that. We just in retail reviewed the zoning changes, and PTC did a lot of work on that and saved us. So I agree with Councilmember Liu. These commissions work really hard and do really good work and save us a lot of time and really help the community, so thank you. Okay, so yeah, communications for the PTC and ARB to council, but also with each other. One of the commissioners had proposed joint meetings between ARB and PTC, and I'm not sure if that would work. The advantage is that sometimes the project goes to one and you get one advice, and you go to the next commission and they change the advice. And so you kind of feel jerked around if you're the applicant. And having a joint meeting would give them one set of advice, and if the two commissions didn't agree, they could discuss it there, and I think it would be a much more direct route. It would be much more complicated. So I'm not just saying it would work, but I think it would be worthwhile to at least consider the pros and cons of that. I think also communicating between the ARB and the PTC, maybe having monthly or bi-monthly meetings of the chair and vice chairs of both, have for them together and talk about process and talk about projects that are coming forward. That I think would be useful. And maybe between the mayor and the vice mayor and the chair and vice chair of PTC, that have some communication going on. I feel quite often the only communication we get is staff reports, right? We don't really interact. Having flow both ways would be a good thing. When I was on Parks and Rec, having liaison was very useful. I'm not sure if that would work here, but I think it's worthwhile to think about how can we communicate better between PTC and ARB, and also between those commissions and council. Okay, yeah, I'll echo Councilmember Byrd about, urban design is an important part of ARB, and I agree with that. Aesthetic standards for wireless, I agree that's an important priority, although not as high as housing, so I understand we only have so much workforce, so much bandwidth. PTC, when they're talking about the project goals, which is the new neighborhood, number 2, it doesn't talk much about transportation, particularly bike transportation, and that's going to be a critical part down in San Antonio. And then later on, you talk about bike plans, but you don't talk about the new neighborhoods. And so I really think those are two important things. And unfortunately, when we plan new neighborhoods, we plan cars, we don't plan bikes. And having those linked explicitly in the work plan, I think would be a really good thing. We also have the retail committee, and the planning transportation, that has some overlap. Having some communication between that, I think, might be useful. And again, I don't know if joint meetings or if it's just the chairs get together and talk, but I think we have to improve our communication. For the UAC, we have AMI, which I just think is a wonderful source of data. And are we doing everything we can to exploit all that data? We have this time of use pricing, and can we scrub that and understand what is the use profile when we're forming the time of use options? What options should we give? What's the demand out there? And we have that demand through the AMI. But also for leak detection for water, AMI is great for that. And are we exploiting that? Maybe we are, I don't know. But data is wonderful, and AMI is going to give us so much data we don't know what to do with it. For grid mod, I think we need reliability goals, and set specific reliability goals, especially as we electrify, we need electrification reliability. And, but also the path forward. We can pick, 99% or whatever, and that doesn't mean anything unless we think, well, if we upgrade this product, it will reduce so many outages and have some realistic path forward for that. And also mentioned about the data centers. That's a real source of electricity, but also it's going to be a big source of water. And are we considering purple pipe water for those data centers at all? Because some of these data centers use so much water. ChatGPT is like a half gallon per search or something. It's amazing how much water they use. And can we use purple pipe water? That would be a really good way of, because we have so much purple pipe water, it'd be good to use that instead of having fresh water. The plan also talks about gray water. I'm not sure what our plans are for gray water. I'm curious what we're going to be doing, why that's in the plan. If we can do it, it'd be wonderful, but I don't know what the plan is right now. And also just in general, purple pipe water, do we have plans for that? Or is that something that's kind of gone the way of the dinosaur? I'm not sure. And finally, HRB, I want to echo Councilmember Liu's comment about historic markers. I think that'd be a really good use for HRB, is to have more historic markers. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Lowing.
Our commissions are extremely high quality and hardworking. I see that reflected in all these work plans. And I think that, unless they're missing something that we've asked them to do, we probably don't want to get too deep in telling them what to do. They should be telling us what to do in some cases to get out ahead of things. So I appreciate those efforts. And as you all know, I've spent a lot of years on those commissions, so I know what the day-to-day and month-to-month is. I want to chime in on this thing that keeps coming up and has for years, and we're talking about it, multiple comments tonight, on overlaps between commissions or communications between commissions. Last year, as mayor and with the vice mayor, we met with the boards and commissions chairs and vices to be listening posts more than anything else. And I thought it was productive, I hope it was for the commissioners. But we have to, I think, take that input, somehow package it, and take some action. There's, for example, in the ARB, now I've lost it, packet page 98. Yeah, on packet page 98 of the ARB proposal, they're essentially making a proposal to us that ARB has little formal interaction with city council, et cetera, and they've got a 4-bullet point thing about all kinds of get-togethers, including at the end, HRB, PTC, and council liaisons to the ARB, facilitate open communications. I don't think we could just sort of debate that tonight and say yes or no, because effectively it's an action item. But I think it deserves some study and a response, whatever we think the best sort of channel for doing that is. It could be, the mayor meeting with them. It could be a referral to P&S, which might take a little bit longer. But this is essentially a proposal within their work plan that we ought to respond to. Not only not just out of respect, but because there's some ideas here that we want to kind of chew and decide on. So I'm not sure we can come up with an answer tonight, but that's a concern that I have. And then another thing I want to talk about is UAC has also suggested, where I'm the liaison, that they want to do what Commissioner Rectal said, of have a person come and represent them sometimes, and I think those can be really valuable. And it's incumbent upon the commissioner to not be redundant of everything that's been in the staff report, but for us to be more than just have this person on standby, at least have them give an opinion on what's happening. And the last thing I want to talk about is sort of a process issue. And I know this might sound funny, but my question is, are we meeting often enough in the commissions for all the work that we're trying to get done? I mean, I've watched in UAC the last 2 years particularly, it's getting more and more and more and more work, and they're trying to get that all done in one meeting a month. So something's going to change there. It's either going to be less work or more meetings. And similarly, PTC has a load. On the other hand, I noticed in the report a couple of weeks ago that there have been a lot of canceled meetings on commissions this year. So that can happen because, staff isn't ready. But it's sort of the other side of getting the work done is we've got these meetings scheduled and then we don't even do them. So I don't know what to do about that. I just want to point out that that's a factor in our work right now. And I feel, for example, on retail, like we've been looking at council for proposal on other retail-like uses and zoning in retail areas for quite a long time, and we still don't have it. So I don't know if that's because staff isn't ready or the consultant's not done or we're missing meetings. And the same thing with retail nodes we've talked about briefly here. And I think both of these are still coming, but it just seems like it's taken a while to get here. And then we're just kind of losing time with our retail vibrancy and economic development. So I think these work plans are quite productive, but they're requiring some response, and we need to find out the mechanism to do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I really echo my colleagues, but particularly Councilmember Liu, about the amount of work that this represents. It's truly extraordinary, and it reflects our extraordinary community and the people who will step up to do it. So just a lot of gratitude for that. I want to echo former Mayor Lowing, because it was when you were mayor, and the two of us met with the commission chairs and vice chairs. And the ARB PTC connection came up, and we talked a little about that. And I think we kind of supported exploring whether there should be more interaction. And I don't know, Chair, if you want to say anything or anybody about that. Yeah, please go ahead if you have some comment on that, if there's any follow-up or...
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as some of you know, Commissioner Hirsch and I have been working on this off and on over the past year. And we do have a structure that we think would be appropriate. And not only how it might be organized, but what topics might be covered as a part of that. And we hope to arrange some kind of staff-mediated long-term process for implementing that.
Well, that's good news. So even if it's not expressly on your work plan, it is something that you're pursuing right now.
I was excited to see that the ARB mentioned it explicitly.
Oh, okay.
So,
I missed that. But
so in that sense, we didn't need to. But yes, it's important that it was stated.
Great. Okay. Well, I think you heard some support for it tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Rectal had mentioned about getting information flowing both ways, and I agree with that. And I believe there's a proposal coming from PNS soon that we dealt with a couple meetings ago that was talking about BCC interactions with council and whether or not each of them can have the option to come before council once a year with either their work plans or specific issue, or anyway, we can I think have a more full conversation about that, because it should be an agendized item, and the city manager is nodding, so I think I've got that right. So we'll have an opportunity to explore that further. as we will the grid mod reliability goals, I think on March 2nd, when the RRSP comes here, people's thoughts about that can be brought up. So data centers, I think many of you know that's one of my favorite topics. So I'm excited that UAC is going to be taking a deep look at that. I am curious kind of how that came to be and what the output will be and where it will go. So maybe Mr. Director Curatori, do you want to?
Yeah, let me give a little update to that. So the UAC really looked at it as a data center competitiveness in terms of, what data centers would come to Palo Alto, what opportunities would there be, is the utility prepared to accommodate that, and what are the impacts to ratepayers in terms of that. So we did a very deep dive in terms of that. So we have a series of questions we'll be bringing back to the commissions, and then on a policy level, what those systems look like. So kind of the state of the art of what the data centers are like. They do not use a lot of potable water anymore. They have closed loop systems. They like to use recycled water, especially given the corporate awareness here. So we have opportunities there. So there's a lot of places where you can tick and tie and kind of discuss that level of detail. And then the UAC would bring some thoughts back to the city council for their consideration on a policy level.
That's great. I really appreciate that because there are a lot of complex things to balance and weigh, and it starts with, the utilities, ability, the capacity, as you said, whether there's impact on ratepayers. There's a lot of disagreement about what that would be and, what the demands are, but then there are potentially contravailing considerations with respect to water use, but even beyond the utilities, just the look of the thing, traffic things, various considerations. So I'm glad, very, very glad that you all are taking that on, because I think it's something we really need to have a direct conversation about. And more people are. So it's a little hard in some ways to see around corners as to where the technology is going to go, as well as the demand. And there's so many variables about this, but we got to do our best. So I appreciate that you're taking that on. I am just out of time, so I will stop there, and we'll see if we can wrap this up with the next round. Councilmember Liu.
Thank you. I'll just make some quick notes. I agree with Councilmember Lowing that the ARB's sort of requested objectives are pretty thoughtful and reasonable, and especially some of the process things do deserve a response. I like that they ask for a California Ave area plan. I think, it's something I think we all want, pending the resources. And so it's good to, aim high, just, try to realize your dreams. And I also have heartburn that we don't have a Cal Ave, or that we're not really talking about a Cal Ave plan. I don't know if there's some way to squeeze that in, potentially in context of the SB 79 committee and the ARB, but would be interested if possible. On the PTC work plan, the one thing that stood out to me is that there's an item for the bike and pedestrian plan updates, but there's not clear priorities about actually realizing specific projects and design, or trying to get some quick build projects through the pipeline. And this segues into a thought also about PTC and council dynamics and communication. I'm thinking about a specific traffic calming project in Crescent Park that has been in PTC for a pretty decent amount of time and is coming to council, I believe, in the coming month or two. So I think that there was some kind of missing dynamic where if something is really stuck in PTC, it could have come to council sooner, or that there could be some kind of two-way communication so we can get issues agendized from the transportation department or from the PTC on a more flexible basis, because we will need to do a lot of traffic calming and we'll need to be able to do this smoothly and quickly. Yeah, and I don't have too much else to add about the UAC, but I've always really appreciated its insights about rates and the commercial side, especially around fiber to the premises. And I think maybe not this year, but next year, there is going to be actually enough data to draw some conclusions about the pilot. And I think that's a exciting opportunity for the UAC. I hope we can get some feedback from the UAC about that this year, if not soon, the year after. So thank you.
Councilmember Burt.
Yeah, first I support the oral reports by the council liaisons, that they be given that opportunity as a defined part of the process when they come, because often we forget they're there, and unless somebody asks them a question, they may be chomping at the bit to say something, and they don't even get the chance. And then I think that specifically their work plan should include a reference to SB 79, even though we don't know yet what their role will be. But we know it's a big deal and they should have some role. Sorry, I see.
If I may just quickly, I'm sure it will be part of the work plan for next year. Last July, when we were adopting that, we did not know.
Well, that goes to some of my process comments at the end. And then similarly, we have a need, the retail committee just reviewed the retail recommendations from PTC, which were really thoughtful and extensive, but we had feedback back, but it goes, okay, if we read their notes or get their report, or if they see ours, but there's no discourse that's there that could speed up this whole process. And if we had an occasional joint meeting, whether it's the PTC and the retail or whatever that ad hoc committee may be in the future, similarly on the UAC and the SCAP. And that goes to my next issue, is that ever since we created the SCAP, we've struggled with what should be the UAC role. And as an interim, as part of our our advisory committee, we included a UAC member, the vice chair currently, but that doesn't really function to have that real two-way dialogue and to sort through what are the respective roles of those two entities. And so we just are kind of proceeding in parallel and in somewhat opaque understandings of what each other are doing. We'll get reports, but it's just not clear, and we haven't struggled to figure out what should be the respective roles. I don't know the answers, but I think we need to get it down on the work plan to address it, and that includes on the SCAP work plan this year, and that's probably where some of that work should be done. One specific issue is that I would like to see the UAC make recommendations on electric reliability that are quantitative. What's the reliability that we should, when and how, perhaps get to our former reliability, which is just a bit down, we're just a bit down from it, but what reliability should we aim for, or really put a clear goal on if we're looking for the community to switch to electric? And we hear time and again legitimate concerns that, oh, you want me to give up my gas, but my lights went out. And how do we address that adequately? What is adequate? We don't have yet those specific goals. And I think we need to figure out what they should be and set them. And if they then need to evolve over time, like everything else, we can do that. But I think it's a real critical importance in our entire electrification program is to figure out how good should our electric reliability be if we want people to go electric. And then I just noticed that under the accomplishments for UAC, it was a little different. It was more focused on what are really utility department accomplishments. And that's different from how it was treated by the other boards and commissions. I think it was intended to focus on what the commission did as opposed to the department, and just an aside comment on that. And that those accomplishments would align with their mission. When I read the mission, I said, oh yeah, I'm sure they could really address that. Lastly, on the process, these were largely completed in June or very early July. And when we get back from vacation, August and September are typically light council schedules. And then October through December heat up, or early December. And as a result, I assume that's part of why it came to us as a consent item. And I think we should put a clear schedule. It says, here's the date that the boards and commissions need to have their work plans done by, and then we will schedule them for August and September to come to the council when we have a real opportunity, and they're timely. So we're in February. These were completed in July, composed in May and June, and they're almost a year outdated by the time we're getting them. Now, some of it still carries forward, but some of it isn't. And we have to figure out how to solve that problem. And that goes to what process we should have. I think this discussion tonight is real valuable. We broke it into half of the boards, gives us, rather than trying to do it all in one evening. We used to have periodic joint sessions with certain of the key boards and commissions. And that was really tough to manage and schedule. And so then this process came forward of, well, the work plans, and it's really this deliberate way in which the boards and commissions have a clear set of goals, including things that they're recommending that they do on a proactive basis, and they need the council's consent for that to enter their work plan. And that's what this process is endorsing in many ways. But then we skipped from having a discussion where we could have discourse on this to it showed up on consent. And I think at a minimum, we need to have this kind of meeting built into our procedures because it's of real value. So I think that covers, yep, that's everything I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to go back to a couple of things, but first I just wanted to, when I asked about the data centers, there's been a lot of stuff on utilities, and we're lucky we have our utilities director here, but we also have our UIC chair. Is there anything you want to add to anything that's been said? 'Cause I feel like you're here. We haven't taken advantage. If there are things you want to respond to, I would invite you to do that now.
I think I would just say thank you for the opportunity to address you. And the data center thing I think is really interesting. We're supposed to go that next Wednesday. And I think our look at it was, how does this affect rates in terms of, is this good for the ratepayer? I think that's the thought. And it is a very complicated process to understand that. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be able to tell you, definitively, if we get a data center of, X megawatts, is that good? How big is too big? Where does that slip over to not be useful for the ratepayer? So that's really what we're doing there. I also think, maybe you haven't gotten this much, I think we're a little skeptical on fiber to the premises, and we're hoping the pilot gives us real information before the city spends too much money on that process. I think that's something we're looking at. And then in terms of grid mod, which is obviously the big thing, I think we're very much in favor of the utilities approach, which is to do what makes sense in terms of phasing it as opposed to going out and rebuilding stuff before it's needed to be rebuilt, given the costs. So I think that's really the thoughts. I don't know if you guys have any other questions, but that was really where we are.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I guess the other thing is, do you have any thoughts on interaction between the UAC and the SCAP committee? I think when that same council item comes forward from PNS about what's the relationship between council and BCCs, we can discuss it more fully then, but if there's anything you'd like to share tonight about how we sort out those roles and any places you've seen a need to revise or do something.
Yeah, I definitely think, I've been thinking about that, like Councilmember Burt said, what's the right approach on this? And right now, I think it's completely parallel. I think the SCAP committee has a much more narrow focus. At least that's my opinion of it. I don't really, I could be wrong. I mean, I don't spend enough time watching the SCAP and doing that. But my sense is their charter in their mind is, how do we meet, the SCAP goals? Whereas we have a broader charter, which is, how do we make sure that we go ahead and try and meet the council's SCAP goals while keeping rates low, while making sure the utility functions properly, to make sure that, money isn't spent in a way that the utility can't afford, those kind of things. And I think that's a broader charter. And, I think that's the better charter, if I have to say it. So I don't know how you integrate that as a council. I've been wondering about that, and maybe just having two parallel bodies that talk about this and could make very different recommendations depending on, and that allows you two different thought processes. But remember, we have the larger charter, and when we think about it more holistically.
Yeah. I mean, I would characterize it as like a Venn diagram and overlapping charters, because SCAP is broader in other ways, but I take your point. And I think that this is something Councilmember Burt mentioned we could also address in the SCAP work plan and think about it further, but I was just curious your thoughts. So thank you for that.
Sure thing.
I did want to mention that when we switched to this sort of appoint half the boards and commissions, at one point in the year and 6 months later do the other half, I believe that led to then they do their work plans after they're appointed, and that's why we're doing half at a time. It's not so much, I think that there's a staggered preparation, so I agree with you that they are stale by now, and we should address that. But I think the reason we do half at a time is that they're prepared sort of one group. Is that correct? One group and then the other group?
That is correct. And I know we've had some parallel discussions on whether it's actually helpful or not relative to the new commissioners. I think it also reflected the recognition that if we brought all the commission work plans to you at once, that would also be a bit of a load on your agenda.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I see no further lights, and we need to figure out, we need to take action on these work plans. They are seeking approval, so if there are, it could be a motion to that effect, if there are amendments that people want to propose to them, but I would entertain that at this point. Councilmember Burt.
Yeah, so first I'll recommend the proposed work plans with a few amendments that I can go through. Under PTC, to add a reference to SB 79 as a project. Under the UAC, to add that they propose, they and staff propose specific goals for reliability as a project. And I think, similarly, under ARB, that SB 79 be included as a project. That we endorse their recommendation to expand the objective standards on residential to larger multifamily objective standards. And that we endorse their efforts to coordinate and streamline what they do with HRB and ARB.
Second.
Okay. I'll just say briefly that those last ones, I think their work plan was asking for our support for that. So it's not writing it anew, just affirming that, yes, we agree and support it.
Councilmember Ekdahl, do you want to speak to your second? No. Councilmember Lewick, do you have a comment?
I think the ARB recommendation was not to apply objective standards to more larger multifamily, but to actually apply it to townhomes. So in that recommendation, it says that some of our current standards focus more on larger multifamily.
Point us out.
On page 97, objective standard refinements number 1.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, just for clarity, it should be, I fully support the concept and the motion, but I think it should be for townhomes. Or if I'm not wrong, or if I'm not right, it's also just a little bit ambiguous, so clarification could be good.
Perhaps the chair could clarify, or do you go ahead?
Thank you. I can step in and clarify. That is correct, Commissioner, or Councilmember Liu. That was intended to identify the fact that we have objective standards for larger multifamily, but that they don't always apply well to townhomes. And the ARB has actually had some discussions on that topic previously, and they were interested in trying to move something forward.
I had forgotten that from when I read it this afternoon. I'd like to change that amendment to reflect, that the endorse their recommendation to expand the objective standards to townhomes.
Okay, so now does that read?
Yep.
Okay, that reads how you'd like it. Okay. Can I just ask, I'd like to ask, I think the Utilities Director, about the specific goals for reliability as a project. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think what we can bring back and talk to the UAC about is looking at our reliability metrics in terms of outages, response times, how that ties into the projects and our operational goals. For example, we have modified one of our staff members in terms of them staying later in the evening. So we have a troubleman available from 4 to 9 p.m. And that means we'll have someone on site, and we anticipate that will be helpful in terms of the response times because they'll be on-prem. So, and that will help us cover kind of in that larger way. So we can bring some of those operational, some of the project-related investments and what we're seeing. You know, for example, AMI, we get information on when we have outages, it goes to our control operators. So as we implement these new technologies, we'll get some efficiencies and we'll get some kind of throughput and what that looks like. So we can bring some of those things back and have those discussions with the UAC.
So that sounds like things that could enhance, specific things that could enhance reliability. But I think what's sought here is goals for, what those reliability standards should be. And when we talk about the KPIs, and whenever it is we do that in a month or so, are those reliability goals kind of baked in or not? Or is that a separate conversation?
Yes, so the reliability goals, we call them the KD SAFE and KD. So they are basically how long do we have outages, how often do we have them? We can rank them against other agencies around us with similar type of systems. Frankly, Palo Alto is about, in terms of its reliability metrics, is about twice as good as PG&E in terms of our response time. So that doesn't mean it can't be better. That doesn't mean that there are other things that we are planning to do. So, we can bring some of those goals back and incorporate that and have a discussion with the UAC.
Yeah, if I could add, I think, Mayor, what you were referring to is that the council will be receiving and discussing, taking action on the reliability and resiliency strategic plan as a part of your climate action goals. So I think the question here is whether it would be best at this time to make this a referral to the UAC, or perhaps when you're considering that strategic plan, whether it might be more appropriate at that point to have this along with potentially other elements that you may want to refer to the UAC. So I think with the director's response, we could certainly do it now, but you may have a better context for that referral at the time that you're considering the overall reliability and resiliency.
Yeah, thank you. That's certainly part of it. I guess what I was trying to figure out is, so the KPIs tell us what our reliability is, but not what our goals are necessarily. And so I think, again, what SOT is, should we set specific goals so that we can achieve our electrification goals? And so it's sort of a means to an end. And what I was trying to figure out is that something that, whether or not that's something that is kind of in the works, or whether it's something that would be framed up for us in this future conversation, or whether it's something we should just do now. That's what I was trying to sort out.
I think it'd be better informed as part of the resiliency and reliability strategic plan. Get that a little more information, then you can probably provide a little more direction in that regard. There are some nuances just by the nature of the work. If we reinvest into our system and replace aging infrastructure, that will increase reliability. If we make some changes to the system and have greener ties in our 12 kV systems, that reduces downtime. If we invest in smart systems and repairable systems, that also does it as well. So there's a lot of kind of overlapping projects, and we just need to fold that in. But maybe that larger discussion that will go to council in March, and then we could work with the SCAP team. We work very closely with them in that development as well. So that might be the best way at this point.
I really support what Councilmember Byrd is saying in terms of, and his goal of making sure that we can enable the things we want to enable, and that this certainly seems like one way, but I feel like you're going to bring to us this more of a landscape as to whether it's reliability, but also resiliency and capacity and all the various things and the various projects you have underway when we hear the RSP and the KPIs and all that. But if not, I want to do it now. I guess that's my question.
We certainly can do some of that now if that's the council's prerogative. I will mention we do, some of these capital projects, will enhance reliability, resiliency, and capacity, right? So the capacity and be able to serve on the electrification is also kind of that third leg of that stool.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Councilmember Burt to clarify, but I guess what I was trying to say is it better as a one-off because it won't be coming, or would it be better to have it as part of the others? But I think Councilmember Burt has something more to say.
So this is not saying to immediately go set those goals. It's simply saying plan for it for this year's work plan. And yes, we are anticipating that we'll have a deeper discussion as council and we have the SCAP and be able to go into that. But all we're doing is saying it just goes in as a work plan item so that everybody's anticipating it'll happen. We aren't saying what the goals should be or any such thing, just that we should set goals. And one of the things I should have pointed out before is the director made the point, we already are doing a whole series of major projects that will improve our reliability. The grid mod, much of that is replacing not only equipment that's not sized right and creating or contributing to reliability issues, but outdated equipment with smarter new equipment, better technology. We have the AMI, and then we have the new major power line eventually. So all those and other things, we're already on a path, but we just need to set numbers. And that's why I said just get in the work plan, and then we'll have the deeper discussion at SCAP.
That's fine. I'm aware of all those projects. It seems like pulling one thing out of a whole suite of things we're doing, and I wasn't sure if perhaps we already had the goals. So that's what I was trying to elicit, is whether we needed to do this as a one-off thing. But I have no objection to it if the director doesn't.
We do have in our KPIs kind of be in the top quartile of the entities of similar size, and not only in California but in the nation. But we can also bring that back as a work plan item if you would like to.
Okay, and I think what he's trying to get at is to tie it to the electrification goal. So it's not just an excellence goal for the service, which is good too, and necessary for our community, but also to make sure it achieves the electrification.
I note that the comparison to other utilities is true and accurate. Where we are on the percentile, where we are in relation to PG&E, and we should be marketing that more to our customers and get them to appreciate it. None of them are fully electrified or anywhere near as far along as we are. The past is not prologue. We are looking at an electrified system where we're eliminating gas or declining gas use. That's why we need new and stronger reliability than we or others have had historically. So looking backward is not the solution to this problem.
Councilmember Lowing and liaison to the UIC.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that to incorporate the comments that I mentioned earlier on this back at page 98, the request from, well, it's really the request from PTC and ARB that we should add PTC to the third bullet point here in the motion to coordinate streamline work, which also includes exchange of information to get there. So I think in the last bullet point, you should list HRB, Architectural Review Board, and PTC.
That sounds good.
Yes.
That's all.
Any further discussion? Going once, going twice. We have an exhausted council. I think it's time to vote.
Councilmember Lowing?
Yes.
Councilmember Liu?
Yes.
Councilmember Lithcott-Hames?
Yes.
Councilmember Burt?
Yes.
Councilmember Rechtel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stone?
Yes.
Mayor Vinker?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, and with that, because we are not doing our last action item tonight, we are to our adjournment time, and I would like to adjourn tonight in memory of Phil Boble, who was with the city of Palo Alto for more than 30 years, including as Assistant Director of Public Works, and was a real champion of environmental leadership by the city, and spent years at EPA Region 9, and I know the city will be looking for other ways to note his accomplishments and service to the city, but as for tonight, we adjourn in his memory. We're adjourned. Good night.